Welcome in to the DNVR Rockies podcast presented by Strava Craft Coffee. Remember to use that promo code DNVR20 because you will save 20% off your entire purchase of that CBD-infused, deliciously rich, and potentially life-altering Strava Craft Coffee. I am your host, Drew Creasman. I'm the managing editor of DNVR Rockies. With me, as always, is beat writer Patrick Lyons, and on this episode, we are going to break down for you a heartbreaking, really 5-3 loss for the Colorado Rockies at the hands of the Los Angeles Angels. They end up losing the series 1-2, and it came late. The game winner coming in historic fashion as Albert Pujols hits the 660th home run of his career, tying Willie Mays for fifth most ever in the history of our 150-year-old game. Quite a moment for Albert Pujols. Obviously, a very difficult pill to swallow for the Colorado Rockies and their fans because it also swung the game in favor of the Angels there late. And while, Patrick, I think this would be a game that people might want to put into the same category as Game 2 in the set, where I said, that's a should-have-won baseball game for the Colorado Rockies, where this one, they almost stole it. Honestly, you walk 10 guys, and it's hard to say you deserved to win that baseball game. They could have. They left some guys out there on base. They could have come up with a few more key hits, stranded some guys, and we'll get into all that right before the Pujols home run. But overall, this really does come down to giving free passes, giving stuff away. The Angels' first 2 runs of the game were given away, and that's just the kind of thing you can't do.
No. If you go 1 for 11 with runners in scoring position, you leave 11 men on base, and you only have 1 extra base hit, and that is by a 40-year-old designated hitter who cannot run, you do not deserve to win the game. And yet, the Los Angeles Angels were able to win the game. So as bad as that line seems to be for the Angels, the lines for the Rockies were, just as bad. Maybe only 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position with 4 left on base. They just weren't getting in scoring position. Besides those, back-to-back doubles by Pilar and Blackmon, it was really quiet. Same thing with Saturday night with 6 hits. It was just a lack of offense, a lack of execution, obviously, by the pitchers, and you really begin to start to question it. It's crazy how much the season shifts, and we're going to put an asterisk inside of every possible letter in the word season as possible. Because that's what all of 2020 has been for us at DNVR is the quest for the asterisk. Right. So, the beginning of the season, really we're talking about 20 games ago. The Rockies looked like potential world beaters. Hey, if everything goes right, they can be one of the best in the game. But unfortunately, I think the thing that we've realized, or I know I have from this weekend, is when everything is going right for any team in any sport, they will look like world beaters. But this is precisely why you play the games, and this is precisely why each league has as many games as they do. Football maybe only has 16, but at the end of those 16, you know who some of the best squads are. If you follow English Premier League soccer, they play 38, and by the end, you know who the best teams are. And in baseball, you play 162. Even in the 60-game season, you still have an idea of how talented of a club you've got. And unfortunately, Colorado has a lot of questions, and there's no way we can unpack all of it. But this franchise, this team,
and they won't have, like you just said, they won't have 162 games. We literally won't be able to unpack all of it. We won't know, and we will never know what this team would have looked like with a normal Nolan Arenado on it. We'll never have any idea. He's out of the game today. At first, you thought maybe it's just because he continues to be so cold, and they've sat him a couple other times, and they're hoping maybe they'll get him on one last hot stretch to end the season. But then it comes out he's got some shoulder tightness. He says it's been bothering him all year. Maybe that's part of the reason why he's been having these issues, and there's no way to know. But just an absolutely, brutal development for the Rockies. And all that being said, they finally did get a couple of 2-out RBI hits from the middle of their order, and it came from Kevin Pillar, the guy who had to step into the middle of the order without Nolan Arenado in the game, and Charlie Blackmon with back-to-back doubles there in the third inning, something we've hardly seen out of the team this year. And so in a way, they almost looked like the lineup in that moment looked better without Nolan in it, which is just a head-scratching development for this team, and one you obviously could not have expected. That said, enough other people, you've got to be able to figure out a way to get those runs in. Matt Kemp and Josh Fuentes. Now that strikeout on Josh Fuentes, that pitch was well inside, and that's a frustrating moment for the young man who's doing a good job there to try to stay within himself and not extend. But for the veteran to come up empty right ahead of him, put that much extra pressure on Fuentes to try to come through in that situation. And then Hampson smashes one into the gap, but it's tracked down on the warning track just short of the wall by Joe Adello. We're talking about a completely different game here. And how much of that is situational? How much of that is functional? How much of that is fundamental to the nature of the Colorado Rockies? And how much of that is just
that's baseball, right?
That's baseball, right?
That's baseball. And we could surmise all day like, it's small sample size. That's just one moment there of struggling to, manufacture a run with runners on first and third, as you're talking about that sixth inning where Pillar and Blackmon, again went back to back with singles that particular time. And we could talk about, all of those things, but if you don't put yourself in that kind of a predicament as far as what the score is, and if you maybe are able to get something going earlier in the game, and if you're not keeping the Angels in the ball game with 10 walks and that one hit batsman.
Yeah.
There was even a point in the ninth inning where they had actually thrown as many balls as they had strikes. I don't know if that's something that has ever happened. Yeah. The margin had just balanced there. So, if you're a better team, you don't even have to worry about that with if one aspect of your squad is failing. That's okay, because there are many facets to pick them up. But as you said, not having probably the largest facet of their team, Nolan Arenado, there in the lineup, and even when he has been producing, it's going to be very hard to be a competitive and consistent team, even for just this 60-game stretch.
I don't think I agree with that, actually. I think I very much disagree with that if they had a good and productive Nolan Arenado, I think that they would be. And I asked that question. Actually, it was asked on the live chat last night just before I saw it right as I was signing off, so I didn't have time to answer it. I shouted it out to some people on Twitter, what do you think? And I'd love to hear people's answers. What do you think the Rockies' record would be with a normal and or healthy, if that's been the case, Nolan Arenado? What do you honestly think it would be? And I think they would be several games over 500. And whether or not that's acceptable or better or whatever, that's always, we can get into splitting hairs on that debate. But if you're getting especially with the addition of a guy like Kevin Pillar, who's been very good for them, if he is giving you extra length in your lineup by being a guy who came into this team to do what he was kind of designed to, which is bat fifth and sixth, and provide that kind of protection there, rather than needing to be a guy that you've got to bat third because nobody else has been able to produce in the middle of the order. I just think it's been a huge element for the team. And obviously in a 60-game stretch, you would assume over 162, there would be time for that to balance out. But I don't know, man. I just don't know, that I think there's a lot of other teams over the last several years with who are small to mid-market teams with superstar players who they're not producing. it dramatically limits the ceiling of that team. They can still overcome, and you should still be able to win without that player. But, very few teams have multiple superstars that they can turn to. And we know them and we know their names and they've got the money and they tend to end up in the postseason. But if the Diamondbacks over the last 5 to 8 years, if Paul Goldschmidt wasn't going, they weren't going. If the Reds didn't have Joey Votto going, even during their times when they were really great, they weren't going. And that's just where the Rockies are at right now. We can and we should nitpick all of the other stuff. Carlos Estevez got to do better there. That you can't walk the guy in front of Pujols, all that stuff. But we've said all season the team goes as Nolan Arenado goes, and they are.
Yeah, no, precisely. I mean that was my point. Is that baseball is much different than basketball. We see how talented the Nuggets are coming through clutch there, down 18 points.
That was
8
crazy.
minutes in the third
Isn't that amazing?
quarter, and they're forcing a game 7 against the Clippers. So
Amazing.
they're fantastic. But that's a sport where you only need those few guys, and even still, you one player can throw his team on their back. And that's not necessarily the case in baseball. One player can certainly elevate his squad in a major way as long as there's enough secondary pieces around. And so on one hand, if you don't have Nolan Arenado, that's really going to sap your win total, sap your offense, and your general momentum, I think, on a game-to-game basis and continuing rallies. And it shouldn't necessarily be that way, and that is the case, I think, for Colorado. But at the same time, if Nolan is doing what Nolan typically does, we're not even really having this conversation. We're saying, hey, maybe when they get into the first round of the playoffs against Atlanta or Chicago, hey, if you just ride the same horses, maybe if you just ride Almonte and Bard and the starting pitching continues to produce, you can just do it. I mean, Washington did it last year with 3 pitchers.
Right.
They were fine. So, but without Nolan Arenado doing his thing, we're not having that conversation of, man, what are they going to do in the playoffs? Because this team unequivocally is not even an 8th seed playoff team right now.
No, right now they're not, and they're not playing that brand of baseball. I was shocked that somebody pointed out, old friend Matt Gross from way, way, way back in the day, Rhode Island Rocks fan, pointing out to me that Nolan Arenado is dead last on the Colorado Rockies in WPA, win probability added. Absolute bottom. And that's, and Ken, if he's hurt enough to have to be shut down, then shut him down. If not, then no, you need to get him back out there and playing. You have to trust that the true talent level of a guy like Nolan Arenado is going to shine through eventually. But in a short game season or a short season, you've got to do the best you can to win the few amount of games you've got left in front of you. But throwing him out there, if that's been his problem, then it's not helping you. Like I just said, very last in WPA means that he's been the worst batter of anybody in the Colorado Rockies roster at adding to wins in high leverage situations or creating runs, doing things. Like, he's not helping them win baseball games with his bat. And
Ken asking, should Nolan be shut down similar to what they did with Marquez last year? Also Gray. No, I don't think so, because in the situation with the pitchers last year, even Scott Oberg, you potentially throw in that group. Although we're seeing the same effects with the blood clotting, just taking much longer even here in 2020. A lot of that decision for those young pitchers, and John Gray is still a young pitcher, is just about not overstressing their injuries and saying, you know what, let's shut it down so that you can come back next year completely healthy. With, I don't know the extent of Arenado's AC joint, issues that he's having right now, but I mean, shoot, there are guys who've played on, with broken fingers and broken or sprained feet, things of that nature, and the offseason allows them to heal and repair, and that's fine. With pitchers, there's that threshold where if you hit that, if you go past that line of no return, that guy might need Tommy John surgery, and now you've lost him for 18 months.
Right.
You're not going to – there's no injuries happening to Nolan Arenado right now that's going to set him out for 18 months, unless he does something incredibly crazy. And even still, I'm not a doctor, nor do I play one on a podcast, but I don't think you could, do anything to your AC joint that would force you to miss a season and a half. So, Nolan might just have to kind of grind through it. And, Drew and I, we text back and forth when we're watching these games. Like, did you see this? Did you notice that? Just kind of doing our little reporting back and forth. And we noticed, this entire weekend, it happened Friday, happened Saturday, where Nolan hit one deep to left field that really just died, just didn't have a lot of mustard on it. Nolan's talked about it, recently about just, he's not barreling the ball up like he normally does. The exit velocity is not there, making more contact, but not making as good of hard contact. And so you see those balls dying out there like quails in left field, and you can't help but think there's almost never been a time in his career that wasn't a home run.
Right.
Like that happened so often, happened late Saturday night, happened late Friday night, and it was, wow, why wasn't that a home run? That's a patented Nolan Arenado, fourth row. If he doesn't get all of it, it's fourth row in left field. If he does get all of it, it's 4 rows from the concourse. Right. And he's just not hitting it out this year. It's frustrating.
Just warning track outs, and maybe that is the shoulder. Who knows? Yeah. But we will just have to see what goes on moving forward. Right now, I couldn't lay down a bet on Nolan Arenado. I could not go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and tell you exactly what he or the Colorado Rockies are going to do next. I do have some ideas about some things, though. Armen Marquez is going to get a decent number of strikeouts. I really wish I could lay down a few more bets on just Kyle Freeland to get a quality start. We got to make that a thing. We got to contact our friends over there at the DraftKings situation. Say, hey, how about some Kyle Freeland to get a quality start bets? Because those have been, he had 6 to start the season, then 2 bad games, and then 2 more quality starts. So he's 8 for 10. Is that right?
Yeah, I think I don't know if he's in the top 5 right now in baseball, but he's top 10. He was top 10 already going into last night's game, Saturday night's game, and he added one more to that resume.
So I love doing all that stuff. Also, you got to poke over to the other sports every once in a while. There have been some fun Denver Nuggets bets, great football stuff. You still got a little bit of time left now that during week 1, you can bet $1 on any team to win $100 if they win. That's just $1 to win $100. You got to use that promo code DNVR during the sign up for a limited time only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Must be 21 or older, Colorado only. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-522-4700.
That being said, my DraftKings pick of the week, Sunday night baseball.
Sunday.
Brusdar Graterol. Folks,
I love that name so much.
You do love that name. Brusdar Graterol. It's almost like it does kind of sound a little bit like a created character on WWE 2K. Like a little bit.
It fit in any game. Those old fantasy games, you could put him into Skyrim. You could play Elder Scrolls, and this is my dwarf, Brusdar Graterol.
Very true. That plays there as well. My DraftKings pick of the week is the LA Dodgers over the Houston Astros. Rockies fans, you need to root for the Dodgers tonight.
How did you do? No, I mean, look, against the Astros.
Against the Trastros. Yes.
That's right.
Against the
Look, the Rockies aren't catching
Asterisks.
the Dodgers. Nobody's catching the Dodgers. You might as well root for the Astros to lose.
Whenever there's those pandemics, whenever those big moments that bring society together, we have them. It's happened. We just had the 19th anniversary of 9/11. That was obviously one where we came together as a country. It was beautiful.
Through baseball and Mike Piazza and hitting a home run, inspiring moment, and
we've come together in different ways, at least at the beginning of the pandemic, and there are obviously certain pockets where people are working together. And right now, Rockies fans, you need to applaud Dodgers fans, because if you haven't seen it, they surrounded Dodger Stadium at Chavez Ravine with signs and greeting the bus, quote unquote, the buses, letting them know, You guys are cheaters.
The Game of Thrones lady is out there. Shame. It's
Everything.
It's beautiful.
It
Thing
is.
of beauty.
And Houston has now won the first 2 games of the series against the Dodgers. They're pretty much safe, as the 8th seed right now in the AL. But regardless of that, you can't be pulling for what the Astros represent. So for that reason, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. And I guess the biggest enemy right now of the baseball world should still be the Houston Astros. Therefore, Rockies fans, your DraftKings pick of the week is the Los Angeles Dodgers at minus 118 against.
Do what you got to do.
Minus 129. It's now minus 129. Even better.
Go and get that. I'll tell you what, if ever there was a time, maybe for once in your life, Cody Bellinger hitting a huge, gigantic home run will bring you joy. So go and bet on the Dodgers tonight. I think that's a great call for our DraftKings pick of the week there. And do we have to talk any more about this baseball game? I was going to say, maybe not this one.
Let's talk more about – how about Albert Pujols? I mean, we could wax poetically about El Hombre.
Sure. It really was. If you want to step back for a moment in the grand history of human existence, the Colorado Rockies lost a baseball game today. Happens. This team has a lot of questions that remain more or less what they were going to be. Actually, the more I think about the Rockies offseason, now that it's looking like it might be a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be, the more I realized they were going to have the exact same questions, whether they got into the playoffs or not. Their offseason is going to feature the exact same set of problems that they need to solve. And so them losing this game, like when I'm 75 years old and talking to my grandkids, I'm not going to remember that on September 13th of 2020, the Rockies lost 5-3 and, put them a little bit further back in the playoff race. And, it was in the middle of this tough stretch for Carlos Estevez, and Ryan Castellani walked 6. I might remember Castellani walking the 6 guys as a feature of the game. But the reason I will remember this game at all is because of something very special that we got to see out of Albert Pujols. 660 home runs is a lot, Patrick. And anytime you tie Willie Mays in a baseball thing, you've done something special. We have got to witness, in our lives, he has been a top 2 baseball player to get to witness and to be there today. I've now been in attendance for Ichiro's 3,000th hit and Albert Pujols' 660th home run. So I feel very lucky, just cosmically in that sense, to get to be there for those things. Obviously, today's was a little bit bittersweet, but still, what a career, what an incredible hitter, what a no doubt first ball Hall of Fame player and, by all accounts, person.
Absolutely. Yeah, I can't, argue anything what you're saying there, especially when you consider the fact that, the 2 other players that, were alive during our era or active during our era, Barry Bonds and Alex Rodriguez, we know unequivocally used performance-enhancing drugs. And, Pujols came in at the, right around that time. In that, I believe it was the 2001 season was his rookie year. So, there have been, maybe certain speculation here and there, but no proof, no proof whatsoever. So that being said, he really is, the top home run hitter, the top slugger, run producer. Saturday night, 669 doubles past Craig Biggio for 5th all time. 2 totally different players, by the way. If you think Craig Biggio and Albert Pujols, you go, one thing they were good at was, standing on second base after hitting a baseball. Right. Just that Craig Biggio hit a lot more that were less than a double, and Albert Pujols hit a lot more that were more than a double.
And that's the thing. And Goodman gave a stat on AT&T broadcast the other night about how Albert Pujols has never had a 100 strikeout season ever for a guy that's hit 660 home runs and has Craig Biggio style double. Albert Pujols is unequivocally, I don't have to look at any stat. Albert Pujols is one of the 10 best right-handed hitters of all time. He's probably one of the 5. That's where I'd have to start looking into statistics and going over, you start looking at like Honus Wagner and shit.
Willie's
You're like,
obviously Willie Mays.
Right, Willie Mays. You're like, then you're really digging into the best of the greatest of the people who played the game 100 years ago, even too. So then you're even talking about a completely different level of competition, that, completely different level of competition that was even allowed to play the game at times. And then Albert Pujols doing it against the best who've ever played, the absolute best, in an era where guys are bringing a hundo with regularity. 92-mile-an-hour sliders weren't regularity when Willie Mays was playing the game. So it blows my mind how consistent he's been, and that he's on those lists with guys like Biggio and Mays, and there's several others that because he wasn't just a great power hitter, he's a great hitter, one of the greatest hitters of the baseball who's ever lived, and probably on a short list of guys you can claim to be the greatest hitter of all time. Like,
yeah, he's there, and really, it's funny the similarities between him and Mickey Mantle. I've been thinking about this a lot after someone made a crazy comment on Twitter. I know that's hard to believe, but made a crazy comment about not wanting to pitch to Mike Trout because he was hitting under 300 at that point in the season, and I just thought about when in Mickey Mantle's career would you have not wanted to face him, because he finished his career under 300, and the reason for that was because he wanted to continue to play a couple more seasons, and because that forced his batting average to dip below 300. And Albert Pujols right now, batting 235 on the season, is now a career 299 hitter.
Oh, really?
So again, when you go for some of those counting stats, those rate stats take a hit, and that happens. We know that it's one of the trade-offs. Again, that his contract is, he's not going to walk away from that, so he's going to play. Still has $30 million on the books next season in 2021. Right. Isn't going to do much more as far as home runs go for that, but does have 3,000 hits already. I think he's in the top 4 in RBI, 2,095 before this game. So now he's at 2,097. So yeah, just an all-time great. And I was at the game Friday and Saturday night, and driving down, I talked to you, I talked to my father, and it's funny, I did this same thing with the Ichiro game because I didn't have press credentials at that game, and I went as a fan, sat in right field, and in fact, when I go and watch that Ichiro triple, the camera is half on the right field auxiliary scoreboard, half on the stands, and I see myself. I know I'm wearing a baby blue Lakewood Blue Claws cap, so I can see myself in that. But when I do that every
time WWE shows footage of Goldberg coming back, because when he came, because that was at the Pepsi Center when Goldberg came back for his last run and beat Lesnar and took the belt and everything. And every time they show a montage of the most recent return of Bill Goldberg, I can pause and see me and Katie in the background because we were there at that show. So I love that you do that with Ichiro's 3,000.
Bill Goldberg returns and Ichiro's 3,000. Same thing.
The same thing.
I had to call you on that. So, but right, going down to the game, I go, if I catch this ball and he hits one out, what am I asking for? And so, the mind goes crazy. I know it's not going to happen, but it's fun. It's like when my mom plays the lottery. She goes, all right, here's what I'm doing. I'm giving all my siblings, bop. All right. So I thought going down, to the stadium this weekend, what would I rather have? And what would you rather have out there? What would you have rather seen if, let's say, you were able to go to the ballpark? You're not going to catch a home run ball, but you could see the game live and say you were there to witness it. Would you have rather witnessed Mike Trout hitting 3 home runs? So that's not an easy thing to do. He had 2 a couple years ago at Coors Field. Or would you have rather hit Albert Pujols hit 1, that being number 660 to tie Willie Mays for 5th all time? And I think you answered this, Drew, but what was your answer between the two? A 3 home run game from Trout or Pujols hitting?
Easily the Pujols thing.
Same.
Yeah, especially because there's a limited amount of time. You never know. Now, we don't get a lot of opportunity to see the Angels. May see Trout come through again, may not.
Right. He's got a lot more left of his career.
I know, Pujols is getting close to being done, and that's going to be one of the final crowning achievements and one of the greatest careers in this sport ever. And to be a part of that is pretty cool.
It's funny because that actually reminds me of, I believe it was 2001, 2002, where my father said, hey, I know somebody who can get us 76ers tickets. Pick a game out, he'll hook us up. Great. I look at the schedule, look at the teams, and I go, all right, we can either see Michael Jordan on the Wizards, or, because I'd never seen him play at that point, or Yao Ming of the Rockets. Ooh, who do I go see? And my rationale was the same as kind of what you're saying, Drew. It was like, well, Yao Ming's going to be in the league forever. If I really want to go see him, I will. We'll go see Jordan. As it turned out, as we got closer and closer and closer, I looked on the calendar and go, holy S. This is the final game of the season. This was Jordan's last game. I had no idea when I picked that game that was going to be Michael Jordan's final game ever. I just go, Jordan's older. Yao Ming, I can go see him next year. Year after that. I'm not even sure if I knew Jordan was retiring at the end of that season. But lo and behold, you go for the legend. You go for that high water mark. It's like saying, I saw Ichiro, go 6 for 6 one day in Seattle. Well, that's cool, but I was there when he got number 3,000. That's the one, the clip that you show. You don't show highlights of, him slapping the ball 6 times. You show the one where the game stops. Both teams come out on the top step. They greet him with open arms. They clap. They put the thing on the scoreboard, right. And the players and the fans just kind of soak that moment up and say, this is the moment to culminate a great career. It wasn't a good game. It wasn't a good 6 for 6 game. It was the culmination of a great career. And, if you got to watch the game, you saw that great career for Pujols. If you're lucky enough to be Drew Creasman, you saw that with your own naked eyes.
Yep. And so we have got to, at that point, just toast to the draft king of the game, Albert Pujols. Remember to use that promo code DNVR, but can't be a Rocky today. Maybe could have been Pilar and Blackman. Maybe could have been someone else if they'd have come through late. No, it has to be Albert Pujols today. It just, there's no way around it. When you make history and you win the game and you're one of the greatest of all time and you're just an awesome dude. Shook my hand that one time, and I'm certain he could have ripped my arm clean off of my body. He's the strongest human being I've ever, just from shaking his hand, you got the sense of power that this person holds.
If Tracy wasn't there, he may have. Now you got to shake Goldberg's hand. Now you got to shake Goldberg and Ichiro's hand. You got to compare these milestone guys and go, all right, who had the best grip strength?
I wonder if Goldberg has bigger arms than Albert Pujols. It would not surprise me if Pujols has larger arms than Bill Goldberg.
Than Goldberg now, or maybe a decade ago?
That's a good point. Because a decade ago, Bill Goldberg, I think, was built out of muscle.
How about trapezoids?
Yeah, right.
No contest. Bill Goldberg.
Traps goes to Goldberg. So.
Ryback or Pujols? Anyway.
It's the arms and the hand. Gigantic hands. Anyway, thank you all for listening through to whatever this was. Frustrating series for the Colorado Rockies, but we're going to be right back out there like we know all of you will be. No matter what happens, you're checking out your Colorado Rockies baseball. We'll be there with you. So make sure that you're following us on social media at Drew Creasman, at Patrick Lyons, at DNVR_Rockies. Make sure you're subscribed to the DNVR.com so you don't miss out on any of that written content. Plus, you get discounts on shirts and hats and masks, all other kinds of cool stuff. You get a bigger beer when you come on down here to the DNVR bar, and it just makes you that much more a part of our community. We, of course, love having the support from everybody out there. We love it when you support all of our sponsors. You drink your Breck Brew. You place a couple of bets down there at DraftKings while drinking Strava Craft coffee. Maybe don't do all that stuff at one time. Pace yourself on those things. But still, thank you so much for hanging out with us and continuing to be absolutely awesome, regardless of how the Colorado Rockies play. We will continue to be absolutely Patrick Lyons and Drew Creasman. And until next time, we will see you at the ballpark.